Banishment after James the Fourth
Yeah.
and John Armstrong.
Yeah, the Mackays got banished too.
Yeah, it's,
Yeah,
who didn't?
yeah, they ended up
Okay,
over
the
here.
Stewarts.
Yeah. Did this, no, Stewarts?
Were kings for a while.
Yeah, they had, top dog.
Is everyone ready? The time being 9 o'clock on Thursday, February 24th, 2023. I'd like to call this meeting to order of Kane County's Public Service Committee. Clerk, please call the roll.
Gums,
Gums here.
Lewis,
Lewis here.
Sturgis, Tepe,
Tepe here.
Williams,
Williams here.
Young,
Young here.
Sanchez,
Sanchez present.
Pirog. You have quorum.
Can someone please ask for unanimous consent to approve the minutes of January 19th, 2023?
Vern Tepe asks for unanimous consent.
Is there any objection? Hearing none, the minutes are approved. Public comment. Is anyone here in person or online who wishes to deliver a public comment? I don't see any unfamiliar names or faces on Zoom, so I will go on to finance. Any questions on the finance report for this month? All right, Recorder's Office.
Okay,
Dave,
good morning, everyone. My
and
name is-
identify yourself for the recording.
Okay, yeah. My name is David Scholes. I'm with the recording department. My job is research manager, but as I'm the only employee in the research department, I guess I'm a self-managing person. I do a lot of other functions with the office. Sandy oftentimes will have me come over and bring the report over to you. So I just wanted to introduce myself to everyone. In general, the recordings are staying way down. I'm sure you can see from the numbers and stuff, and even the revenue's fallen off quite a bit. We're still getting a lot of commercial sales, which is accounting for a large portion of the revenue, but we're hoping that maybe with the spring, I know there's a new Cambridge Lakes development that's going to be going on fairly soon. So hopefully when that starts going, there'll be some new home sales. Maybe things will pick up a little bit. So hopefully.
Okay, any questions for the Recorder's Office? All right, thank you, Dave.
Thank you.
Treasurer's Office, Mr. Lawson.
Okay, thank you very much. The report, well, first of all, thank you, Chairman Sanchez and Vice Chairman Young, members of the committee. The report that you have in front of you was filed 7 to 10 days ago. And I'd like to go directly to the two resolutions that we have this morning that I ask for your approval to move them along. So this first one, let's see. Blair, if you'll pull up the online payment and property tax slides. Thank you. I'm in, let's see, I'm joining you from mandatory county treasurer training in Springfield this morning. I met with the state treasurer, Mike Frericks. We renewed a friendship that goes all the way back to the time when we were both serving in the Senate together. I'd like to ask Maria Herrera, our chief deputy in the treasurer's office in charge of collections, and Cindy Christopher in charge of managing customer service to come to the podium for any potential questions. Mr. Chairman, we presented a chronicle of the process 1 month ago, and I believe that we received consensus and moved forward. The reason why we're back again today is that when we got to finance, Mr. Tepe expressed a concern that we should go to the RFP approach. There were several valid reasons why that was unnecessary, including no cost to the county and internal control state statute, but we did choose to accommodate. And so we went through the process of the RFP, and that has now been complete. And I'd like to thank Maria, Cindy, Michelle for the good work on that. So Blair, because we went through this a month ago, I'm going to go through pretty quickly. So if you go to the next, the goals for the online, oh, that's really quick. Goals for King County, there's 7 listed, but increase online payment adoption for property taxes, payment by online to automate. We want to choose a vendor that will keep King County ahead of the electronic engagement and technology trends. We want to dramatically reduce the incidence of potential confusion on the part of our constituents that cannot locate an account when someone makes a payment, and also to eliminate duplicate payments. So next. As Michelle in the office said, we're looking for a simple system that anybody can use without having questions, even if they're not computer savvy. Actually, that was Maria has mentioned that. And I'm not sure, but she probably has in mind the county treasurer, because if we can put in place a system that I can use, and I do intend to use it this year, then any of our constituents can find their way through it. It's a simplify, streamline. Next.
Blair's coming.
Okay, first and foremost, whatever system is in place, it needs to be safe. Next. One of the things when it's such a big expense that people are paying over to the county government for use for all of us is they want a receipt. So it has to be nice and clear, clean, and they need to have a receipt. Next. We learned a lot going through the 5 original demonstrations before our meeting 4 weeks ago. This is a slide that we showed over on the right-hand side, the idea that not only do you need to put fuel for change, but you also need to reduce friction so that people adopt new behavior. So our system provides both. Next. Naturally, our intention is improvement. We want to be able to measure our performance metric. It's a fancy word. Few actually do it, but I know that we want to do that in Kane County. Our goal is to double in 4 years our adoption of online payments. Where we stand right now, as you may remember from a month ago, is that we're 17% of people pay online. Of the half of all payments, the other half comes from the banks that collect money from escrow. So that 17% is really 34% of the eligible people, outside of bank payments, eligible people to make those payments. So our goal in 4 years is 68%. Now, so that, we don't make ourselves crazy in the treasurer's office, nobody's going to die if we don't make it, but I'm confident that we'll make it. And we're going to work toward that objective. So next. This is another example of what's possible, more success. I figure that if these other places can do it, then all of us in Kane County can do it. Next. One of the reasons why Auto Agent, which eventually was recommended last month, and I don't want to get too far ahead, but is recommended again this morning, is because they already take care of us. If you take a look at the top right-hand picture, they do the real estate tax services for the banks. And what they're doing in this is they're extending their service to us by covering the bottom right portion, which is the individual taxpayers. So they say that it's like flipping a switch. I know nothing is that easy, but it's just an extension of what they're already doing for us. Next. In addition to already taking care of us, they take care of other Illinois counties. Problem with, it was interesting, what we found when we went out for the RFP is that, and it's fine, it's done, we're ready. The last slide will be the synopsis of the conclusions, but we found that respondents were not in this business, and then they don't have Illinois experience. There were people who were asking us questions where obviously they had not taken a look at what the Illinois state statutes and situations are. So it's not only they help us currently, but also they help a number of other counties where I'm together with those other treasurers today. Next. Again, to emphasize, this is merely an extension of what they're already doing for us. Next. As I mentioned a month ago, when in the presentation, Auto Agent said that they have a patent, I just didn't believe it. Maria and Cindy and Michelle went back to actually look it up, and they found the patent. It's fascinating. So, but still, we want to accommodate all members of the committee and the board if we can. So these are leaders in their field. Next. You saw this vendor comparison a month ago. It's a highly rational process. Practical common sense was used by Cindy and Maria and Michelle, and I'm very pleased. A month ago, I think, Mr. Tepe, you were pleased, and that might have just been my interpretation, that initially I was in favor of iCloud, but the more we took a look at it, the more I understood that Maria, Cindy, and Michelle were right, that the extension, the knowledge that they already had, the reliability, all good things. So we came to the conclusion of Auto Agent. Next. Our intention naturally is continual innovation. Next. We want to avoid extinction. Thank you, Ms. Chuby, for giving the feedback that you enjoyed this slide the most, if I recall quickly. So what's so good about this automation is that it's not only more efficient, so less cost, but it's also more effective, fewer errors. Next. An interesting thing is some counties charge a convenience fee along with the billing. And I think what the chart on the left-hand side shows is that there's no real correlation between fee charged and adoption of the practice. However, in Kane County, if we can, we want to provide services to our constituents within what they're already paying us, so no convenience fee. So we're still going with 0 on that. So next. Okay, and then here's the synopsis of what the result was for the of the RFP. Auto Agent was again the top. Zing Card, the second place. The concern from the beginning that I had, they're our current vendor. There were some deficiencies that in their proposal, they were talking about strengthening the areas of some perceived weaknesses that we had of theirs. There were a couple of the ones toward the bottom that just weren't viable. So I'd like to thank our staff for their extra work. That's all I have. Maria, Cindy, and I would be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Mr. Lawson. Well, we have these 2 resolutions, so I'll call them one at a time. And if there are any questions, the ladies here are available to answer them. So if I could have a motion, I'll entertain a motion.
Mr. Chair, before the motion, Tepe here.
That be moves for authorizing contract for
No.
credit. Oh, you're
No.
not moving. You have a
I'm
comment.
not moving.
question.
I'd like to just correct a few things that Mr. Lawson said. It was not my suggestion that they go out to bid. It was my suggestion that we could not approve a resolution that did not have firms and names associated with it. His choice of taking it out to bid was his. My suggestion was, I believe that he actually had the authority to make this decision, but I understand the logic of wanting to get the agreement of the board in going forward with this. And my biggest concern would be the fact that there are fees associated with this. 2% fee for certain portions of this means if you're paying a $5,000 tax bill, you're going to be paying hundreds of dollars in addition to that. So just wanted to set the record straight on that. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Tepe. Mr. Young, I see you have your hand up. Is that current?
Yes. Thank you. This is Mr. Young. Mr. Lawson, is there a example of how this will work? It sounds like this is going to be a brand new website that Auto Agent will develop. And do you have like screenshots, or maybe you could present that at the next meeting of what this would look like? You enter in your parcel number, you pay your bill, and I guess the other question, is there a convenience fee? Because I thought you said there was no convenience fee. And thank you for the response.
Sure. Several items. Number one, it's not brand new. They do this across Illinois and across the country. So they've already done this. This is not developed for us, although it's tailored to Kane County, what our practices are internally. So they do it for a lot of other counties, the exact same thing. And, we would be an additional client. Are there screenshots and things like that? Demonstration, the ability to demonstrate what they're going to be doing in the future. Yes, there are. We'd be happy to, any member of the board, any member of the public who would like a demonstration is always welcome. Just call us. We'll arrange it so that people can see what we've seen and get the assurances that we've received. And then finally, as far as the question about fees, that's the credit card, that there is no convenience fee, so no fees that go to the county government. However, when a person when a taxpayer decides that they're going to use a credit card or a debit card, there is the credit card company's fee on that transaction, like at any vendor. What we will be encouraging people to do, and what I think most people will do in the end, is they won't use the credit card. They'll come into our system. They'll find that if they use an e-check, which goes directly to the bank account, and they make it very easy, that's zero cost. And so there won't be any, even a transaction fee for using an e-check. Does that answer, address the questions? Mr. Young?
It does. It does. I guess I'll just, I want to see how easy it is because I want to use it June 1st for mine. So will this be ready to go
Well,
by June 1st?
it will be, having another month that we need to wait for the approval. We'll do as much as we can ahead of time. It does press us against that time frame. However, that was one of the things that was part of the original evaluation and also part of the RFP evaluation. And that was the smoothness of the implementation, the accuracy, and also how quickly they can do it. But the answer to your question is yes. Actually, we must be ready for the tax cycle, to implement it properly. And everybody is welcome. Just give us a call and we'll be happy to put together a presentation. It is one of the benefits versus what we're doing right now is there are a number of different screens. Like if I'm not mistaken, when you get to the payment portion in our current system, there's something like 4 or 5 screens that you need to go through. And the entire system under Auto Agent is like 4 or 5, I believe it's 4 screens, 4 or 5 screens.
Okay. Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, Bates, please.
Bates, we have Lewis up first and then you, Ms. Lewis.
Thank you.
Okay, so, Treasurer Lawson, so we have always in the county had a online payment system where you could do e-check or you could do your credit card and get the things. So what I'm understanding is really this is just an enhancement and a way to make it easier for our taxpayers to pay their bills. So we're not reinventing the wheel. We're actually just enhancing something that we've already had to make it
Yes.
better for our taxpayers. Is that correct?
Yes, that's correct. And again, I would like to thank Maria Herrera and Cindy Christopher and Michelle for their dedication to continual improvement. When I came back from the Finance Committee meeting, I can tell expressions on people's faces. They were very concerned, but there wasn't any like complaining. There wasn't complaining, just said, we've put together so much of what typically goes into an RFP. We will get that done today by 4 o'clock so that we meet the deadline of advertising that we're going to publish by Friday. And then they got that done. And then the RFP was published that Friday afternoon. And then by Monday, we had the 6 responses. By Tuesday, a couple of people stayed late on Monday, and then people came in early on Tuesday. By noon, actually by 1 o'clock on that Tuesday, the analysis and the conclusions were done. Every page of every proposal was studied.
Before we continue discussion, can I get a motion in a second? Please.
Williams
This
moves.
motion.
Williams moves, Lewis seconds. All right, Ms. Bates, I believe you had a question.
Yes, thank you. In any business, you must have a business model. This company needs to be paid. Who is paying them?
Let's see. I have asked that question naturally. See, the way they make their revenue. Let's see. Can you refresh my memory, either Maria or Cindy?
Yes.
I'm so much concerned about either the county or the taxpayer that it's a valid question. I've asked and gotten the answer, but I can't remember it. So either Maria or Cindy, can you help
Maria's
with
at
that?
the podium.
Maria's-
And
I'm at the
Maria, you
podium.
might want to pull the microphone close. That one is, it's not very sensitive at all.
Okay, good morning. Yes, on the credit card side, the fee is not withheld with the county, so that's part of their payment. And with e-check, even though it's free, the money is filtering through their bank to ours, and we get it in 2 days. So basically, you're talking millions of dollars passing through their banks for say 2 days, and then it hits our account. So that is paying through the funds that they're filtering through their bank.
They're
So the
taking it
county-
from the,
They're collecting it,
from
it
the
goes
bank?
to their own bank, and from their bank, it's passed on to our bank. So the money is filtering through,
So that
Their source
temporary
bank.
liquidity is
Correct.
valuable to them.
Right.
Interest.
yes.
it's the float that is paying for this? The float
Basically,
of the,
It's received
Okay.
when the transaction goes through, it doesn't go directly to our bank. They have their own bank.
Mhm.
So it goes to their bank and then it's passed on to our bank. That's why it takes a 2-day delay.
maybe that's why they delay it?
Perhaps. Mr. Roth, did that answer your question, Ms. Bates?
I think so. That's a pretty strange answer, but I guess that's the answer. Thank you.
No, it's typical.
actually, what's very interesting, and I appreciate, Maria, your better memory than mine on that detail. Actually, in many businesses, these days, it is the float. Actually, in appliance sales, I know of a circumstance where larger wholesalers, where they make their money is on the float. Usually it's longer than the 2 days, but a small, I think somebody has told me, a small amount, let's see, a small amount of a big number is still a big number.
Mhm.
So,
Yeah, okay,
It's all about
thank
the
you.
interest of the transaction.
Let's call.
Mr. Roth?
Roth here. I was just gonna say, that's common practice with banks. That's where they make all their money too, is on the float. So.
Any other questions or comments on this resolution? Hearing none, clerk, please call the roll.
Gums,
Gums, yes.
Lewis,
Lewis, yes.
Surges,
Burgess, yes.
Pepe,
Pepe, yes.
Williams,
Williams, yes.
Young,
Young, yes.
Sanchez,
Sanchez, yes.
passes.
All right, I'll entertain a motion in a second for authorizing contract for bill preparation and collection services. This is a resolution. Ms. Lewis motions,
Gums will second.
some seconds. Any questions or comments on this resolution? Hearing none, clerk, please call the roll.
Gums,
Gums, yes.
Lewis,
Lewis, yes.
Surges,
Sorry, Surges, yes.
Pepe,
Pepe, yes.
Williams,
Williams, yes.
Young,
Young, yes.
Sanchez,
Sanchez, yes.
passes.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Lawson, for being here with us today. Enjoy the
Thank
rest
you,
of your
Mr.
training.
thank you, Mr. Chairman. And thank you to our staff.
Yes, thank you both for being here. Okay, we'll move on to supervisor assessments. Mr. Armstrong.
Good morning, Mark Armstrong, Kane County Supervisor of Assessments. My report begins on page 43 of the packet. We are pleased to announce that we have another year of having a equalization factor of 1.0000, our 35th consecutive year doing that. And there's some explanation and discussion about what that means and perhaps as importantly, what it doesn't mean. Also included the state's actual memorandum and reporting. If you ever wonder about, just how far along we are technologically compared to other governments, refer you to page 47 of the report. You can see a lot of the calculations of the state are still being written out with pencil and paper. We actually do use those computers you buy for us, and we're happy to do so. I also want to update you on something that happened back in November in this committee. I was asked by then Chair Tepe to offer a presentation on the senior citizen assessment freeze homestead exemption and the definition of household income that is used in calculating eligibility for that exemption. And there was some concern expressed by the committee, and I think we've had some concerns since then in the county board in general, that threshold may not be at the best point, especially considering changes over time. Yesterday, I was in the Senate Revenue Committee in Springfield. I was testifying on another bill, but there was a very large discussion about that very topic. One of the senators, Senator Murphy from Des Plaines, has proposed doing things like eliminating required minimum distributions from being included in the calculation for household income. Another Senator Martwick from Chicago, had concerned about this because he said we're then giving favor to one type of income over another. Whereas somebody who may reach that age and is a little over that income, but not through an RMD, would be penalized, whereas somebody who is not over that with an RMD would receive that favorable treatment. In general, the consensus that seemed to come out of the committee was there seemed to be a consensus to increase the actual threshold. There are numerous bills that have been introduced that would do just that. I'm guessing they will eventually coalesce around one. Some of the bills index to inflation, others do not. Generally speaking, solely from an administrative side, not from a policy side. The fewer moving parts we have on these things, the easier it is for my office to administer, and the easier it is to explain to the general public. If the threshold keeps changing year to year and we don't even know what the threshold is until December, that makes it more difficult for the public to decide whether to file an application. And since all the applications need to be verified, adding something like removal of a required minimum distribution from an IRA means an additional step in the verification process that also slows us down. So we certainly favor the most consistent and easy to explain solution. But it appears to be, at least in the Senate Revenue Committee, some consensus emerging to increase that threshold. I'll be happy to keep the committee posted on whatever progress we see on that issue, and I'll be happy to answer any questions that anyone has.
Does anyone have any questions for Mr. Armstrong?
Tepe here.
Happy, go ahead.
Mark, I want to really thank you for that, and I will be stopping in to have a longer chat with you.
My door's always open.
Madam Chair.
Morning.
Thank you so much for your research, Mr. Armstrong. I have some concern with this, obviously supportive of our seniors and the challenges that they have, and mostly on a fixed income, some of them, some not. But the threshold would apply to that. But once again, what is the impact upon the general population for those individuals who are still striving, struggling, have children, young children, perhaps with daycare costing about $16,000 a year to attend a daycare program? And if you have several children, let's say 32,000 plus. And now we're asking them to increase their financial burden on their property tax. And as we can see by the graph, which we all appreciate having put together, and your input was on that, primarily it's in our schools, our public schools. So how is that going to be a reflective balance to make sure that not only our seniors are taken care of, but equity for the rest of the population?
You raise an excellent point. Whenever one group of taxpayers is favored in the property tax process, it does not mean that that money goes away. What it means is that everyone else pays more. Now, depending on the increment, that can be a little more, or it can be a lot more. And that's always something that should be considered. I'm not sure it always has been, but I was very pleased by the discussion yesterday in Senate Revenue, because the senators actually did address that issue and wanted to learn more about that other impact from it. I think there was a time when a lot of people in Springfield kind of reviewed this as free money, and that time may be going away. And I think our collective education efforts have affected that. Now, this is a policy-based discussion, if one group should be favored over another. Both my office and my association have taken the position that our role is administration, not necessarily policy. Policy is best for groups like this one, or for the General Assembly itself. And I think those are things they absolutely should consider, but ultimately they have to make the decision. From the tone of the discussion I observed yesterday in Senate Revenue, it seemed to be focusing along the idea of maintaining what I would refer to as a historic threshold. In other words, The initial senior freeze bill had a threshold of $35,000. And that threshold has been increased over time. Back in November, when I produced the chart that showed what that threshold is, related to CPIU, and that's the Consumer Price Index for Urban Consumers, which is the index used for the property tax extension limitation law. When compared to that, we were just about at that same point where 65,000 today is about 35,000 what it was then. And that's over a long period of relative low inflation over time. Now, we couldn't be certain what kind of period of inflation we're entering into, but I think there was some interest in maintaining that historic equity in adjusting it to account for that. Having said that, they haven't done anything yet, and it remains to be seen what happens. Probably the biggest wild card is what's going to happen in the House. There's a new chair of the Finance and Revenue Committee. The past two chairs generally, I think if you describe their philosophy, their job was more to keep bills from being passed than to actually pass bills. And they stopped a lot of really, let's just charitably call them unusual bills over the years. Whether the new chair of the House Revenue and Finance Committee adopts that, we're not certain. I've also been told there are about 10,000 bills in the Legislative Reference Bureau. And my guess is that Speaker Welch is going to have to find some way to winnow those out, probably by asking the members to pick their top 2 or 3 priorities. We'll probably know in the next couple of weeks which of these bills end up being in those priorities, and I'll have more information then. I know I didn't really answer your question because it's more of a policy issue than an administrative issue, but I wanted to make sure, because a lot of interest had been expressed here at this committee, that you knew all the facts that I did.
I appreciate it. Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Any other questions or comments?
Bates, please.
Bates, go ahead.
So, Mr. Armstrong, as I look at this, and please correct me if I'm wrong, that's what polite people always say. If, for example, Social Security were to go up 8%, which I believe it has, and we decreased our tax burden on seniors by 8%, the county receives the same dollars in taxes, correct? We're working on increasing the numbers and decreasing them at the same time. So I think we're at a zero-sum game, and therefore no harm would come to young families, right?
That wouldn't be how I describe it. Couple of things that I would observe here is, first of all, let's assume there is an 8% increase in Social Security. That would not necessarily constitute an 8% increase in the senior freeze, because if somebody was receiving amount that was under before and is under after, there's no change to that. So we wouldn't necessarily see that kind of growth. And the chart I showed in November's presentation actually showed how when there is an increase in the threshold, there is an increase in the number of households qualifying for it, but then there is typically a decrease in those other years. So it's not as simple as that. The second thing is the zero-sum game is how I would use it, is how I would describe it, but the zero sum is what comes to government. So for instance, let's assume everyone in this room today is paying an equal share of property tax. And now we decide we're going to give a senior taxpayer, I'm guessing that's going to be you, Mr. Kenyon. You're going to be our senior for today. We've decided Mr. Kenyon is going to pay half of what he paid before. I knew you would. So Mr. Kenyon pays half of what he has before. Now, assuming that the same amount of money is being levied, what that does is increases the amount that everyone else pays to make up for that. And that would be all people who are not in that group. So that would include both multimillionaires who are not senior citizens and young people who are unemployed, who are not senior citizens. It would include both Walmart and small businesses. But as to the extent of how much that's done, that depends on how much the tax base is shrunk from what's not there that would have otherwise been there. Does that answer your question?
Yes, thank you.
You're welcome.
Any other questions or comments for Mr. Armstrong? All right, well, thank you very much for that update.
You're very welcome.
People are paying attention to the conversation, so it's an important topic, actually. All right, we will move on. Regional Office of Education, Ms. Del Santo is here.
Yes, good morning, everybody. Thank you for having me. We have two events, excuse me, that are coming up soon. March 3rd is our countywide Institute Day, which is professional learning for all of the teachers in Kane County. The majority of them will be out at the Q Center from 8 in the morning until 3 in the afternoon. And that focus is going to be on social and emotional learning. Any of you are more than welcome to stop in, attend any sessions that you'd like to attend. If you want to have more information before you go, please just contact me and I'll get that to you. We also have sessions that will be going on out at Wabansie at the Kane County Farm Bureau. Geneva School District is hosting, as well as West Aurora High School. So that's coming up on March 3rd. On May 5th is our annual Educator of the Year banquet. So I invite all of you to come and celebrate education in Kane County. It's kind of like the Academy Awards. We make a big deal out of teachers. We typically have between 30 and 40 nominees from the school districts, and they're nominated by their peers. If you haven't ever attended, it's a great event. This year, we're hoping that Dr. Tony Sanders previously from Elgin District U46, who is now our state superintendent of schools, has committed to being there as well. So it's a fun evening. It means a lot to the teachers. So please put it on your calendars and you will be getting invitations. And that's all I have for you today. I'll be brief.
Any questions for Ms. Del Santo? Ms. Juby?
Will you be selling raffle tickets this year for your nonprofit for Kane Excellence in Education Partnership?
Most likely we will.
We assume Mr. Kenyon will be purchasing a bank of tickets.
You'll have to ask our senior, Mr. Kenyon.
Our senior.
If he gets the discount, then and he's in.
Now that he's saving so much on his property tax.
Your property tax deduction, yes.
So everyone who goes, please bring your checkbook because the partnership does really good work in raising money for things that the regional office does, like the spelling bee and scholarships for teachers, scholarships for kids, the photo contest.
Right.
So
Photo contest that's
it's
in the fall.
bring your checkbooks.
Thank you.
Any other questions or comments from Ms. Del Santo? Thank you very much for being here today. Appreciate it. Okay, we'll move on to Veterans Assistance Commission. Mr. Zimmerman.
Good morning. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I will also be brief, just a recap on our report for the month of December 2022. Our claims are for our veterans that we file claims for in our office are trending faster for getting decisions than the average Illinois veteran. That's a testament to our staff's efficient work in putting those claims together and submitting them. The claims inventory for our office remains high. We have 313 claims pending total. Just to give you an idea, in 2015, at the same time, we had 102 claims pending total. So we're doing about 3 times the work with the same amount of staffs. And we also have another 24 clients in our intake process that we're trying to get claims filed for. We're waiting for various documents or whatever. For the month of December, our veterans received $994,000, almost $995,000 in new benefits. That's money directly in their pockets from VA benefits. That's a monthly record for our office and is double of what we will receive in property tax revenue this year to run our office. So we're very happy about that. Be happy to take any questions that anybody has.
Any questions for the Veterans Assistance Commission? Madam Chair.
Well done. How are you fulfilling that capacity?
We're For the first time in a long time, our staff is working extra hours after work. They're getting comp time, earning comp time or overtime to be able to mostly complete administrative tasks. So this report that I put together, I usually have in the first few days of the month. That took until the middle of the month this time. We delayed some of those administrative actions. Our staff delayed their reporting to me in order to serve the veterans. So we're trying to do what we can with what we have.
Is this stress on the hours cyclical, or is it going to be continual?
It's a good question. A lot of it is from the PACT Act, the federal legislation that passed back in August that expanded benefits to veterans, going back to atomic testing after World War II, all the way up to the burn pits that we see today that I've previously discussed. I did a count. They said 23 new conditions for our burn pit veterans, but really they say, one of those conditions are counting as head cancer of any type. Another one is reproductive cancer of any type, several cancers like that. It ends up being like 280 cancers. So it's a significant amount of conditions that our veterans can file a claim for, and that we're the ones that do that for veterans here in Kane County. The PACT Act had several legislative effective dates involved in it, I believe going out to 2032. So some of those are in effect now where they can file claims, and others go all the way out to the year 2032. So I think a majority of it's now, but we certainly will see more benefits become effective as we get out to 2032, which Congress did to delay the financial $250 billion financial impact of that bill.
Mr. Chairman, Sturgis.
If
1 second.
hold on.
Sir,
I'm sorry.
And thank you. Will you need additional support staff to help you out with this? Because I'm afraid that with the great work that you're doing and with the increased need, there may be a thoughtful consideration of hiring additional staff.
Yes, it's something that we're looking at right now. I'm looking at our additional numbers as they come in before the March 27th Veterans Assistance Commission meeting. This is my governing board, and we're going to look at those what the workload is at that point, and if we need additional staffing, we'll recommend that to them to take action, in which case we would bring it back to this committee to introduce into the county board process.
And one more, the current location where your offices are, will it fill that need? Will you need additional space, additional capacity for that?
Yes, so we're maxed out. We've been maxed out for space, which I know is not unique to us here on this campus. One of the interesting things that my office does, and we're getting pulled more into do now that COVID is over, whatever we want to call it, is we do a lot of outreach. So we're at the Aurora American Legion once a month. We're at the Elgin American Legion once a month. We're at the St. Charles American Legion once a month. The VA clinics, which we previously were at in Aurora, as well as in Hoffman Estates. We left there during COVID for obvious reasons, and they want us back there now. So that's going to be additional staff days where, yes, we want to outreach to the veterans that are going there. That's where our veterans go. We see the most veterans, but we also, when I take somebody out of the office to do that, they're not filing claims. So that's an impact there. Additionally, the Sun City community in Huntley has started up a veterans club. They've kind of had an informal one for many years. They have a formal one now, and they'd like us to be there on a monthly basis as well. So we're getting stretched pretty thin. So to answer the question, this may be a hybrid position we're looking at, where we take one person and put them out into the community and cover all of those bases that I just discussed in order to save the seats back here for the folks who will still be doing the claim. So we're looking at that, and probably a hybrid position, at least to start with.
Okay, so it would be somebody who would be primarily working on the field.
Yes, correct.
Very good. All right, thank you. Thank you.
Mr. Sturgis?
Jake, we appreciate everything you do, and being adaptive again is, just unique. Your team is wonderful. I have lost a little bit of track on the legislation that came out last year and your funding. Have we brought that to a head to the point where everybody is totally comfortable in understanding that? Does that have closure, or is there still items dangling on that?
I think we're most of the way there. There was a trailer bill what you're talking about is House Bill 5184 that passed and went into effect January 1st. Additionally, a House Bill 2369 was recently, I believe this month, signed into law by the governor that amends some things with that act. Mostly, it clarifies things. Nothing that's happening here. There were some other counties where the counties were not providing benefits to the VAC employees and some other things that it clarified that they should be doing that. It puts more responsibilities, clarifies some of the responsibilities on the Veterans Assistance Commission, Governing Board, my staff, as well as what the county should do. I don't think it really substantially changes anything that's happening since the last bill, though.
Okay, I remember there being conversations. I don't remember there being closure. As long as you're comfortable, you know, and I want to make sure that we're being as supportive as we can.
I believe that to be the case.
Thanks, Brent.
Thank you.
Any other questions or comments for Veterans Assistance Commission? Thank you, Mr. Zimmerman. Mr. Kenyon.
Today's the anniversary of the taking of Iwo Jima.
Is it?
Yeah, I see that in the news. And that we lost more young people than any other thing in the war. Killed a lot of Marines to get that little piece of dirt.
A great deal.
It's good that we try to pay them back a little bit.
Indeed.
Thank you for that, Mr. Kenyon.
I'm taking Chapeau's place because he's.
Yeah, I was gonna say,
Thank you, Mr. Shepro.
filling in Shepro shoes now. All right. That's good. Keep the facts and history coming. All right, Mr. Zimmerman, thank you very much for
Thank
being
you.
here today. Okay, County Clerk's Office, Mr. Pollock.
Good morning.
Morning.
We'll start with the finances, since that's, I know, a focus of the board always. We always keep those things in mind. If you look at the January report, month to month, we're up from last year, and we're trending ahead of 2022. Couple things I want to point to for those reasons. If you look to page 64 in your agenda packet, you'll notice our passports. Last month, we focused in our year in review about 2022 setting records in terms of passport applications. January of 2023 blew even that out of the water. 652 passports is higher than any month we've ever had, like 200 more than any month we've ever had. So it's wonderful. People are traveling, people are out and about in the world again. And the fact that we have a one-stop shop where people can come and get their passports, get their pictures, get everything done, shows that they're choosing us rather than the other locations like libraries and post offices. Not that they're bad places, but we like to serve the public, and goes to show I think we're doing a good job in terms of that. And in turn, it helps bring more revenue to the county and pulls that burden off of our property taxpayers. Another highlight of this month's report, we received a check for $32,000 from the state. We're always seeking grant revenue. This grant is some reimbursement for election judges. A portion of the payments that we make to our election judges who work long, hard days, we get reimbursed from the state. This is our check from November. So as soon as we're done, we apply for it. The state's paying bills faster, so that's a good thing for all of us. So that election fee line indicates that 32,000. So we're also, there's legislation out there. We see what's going to happen probably closer to May to ask for an increase in that reimbursement that we receive for our election judges. There's a lot more pressure on our judges. There's a lot more work. We thank them. We know that we can't do this without them. And so anything we can do to help thank them for their work, we appreciate. So we have that. In terms of what else is going on, you don't see long lines for early voting. But again, as I mentioned last month, there's one ward with one primary. That's the only race that's on the ballot next Tuesday. Once we get past Tuesday, that's when everyone else will be voting. So just some quick reminders. The consolidated election for everyone is April 4th, Tuesday, April 4th. Early voting, in-person early voting at the clerk's office and the Aurora office will begin Friday, March 10th. And then we expand the early voting to all those other sites on Monday, March 20th. So once we get past Tuesday, that's when you'll probably see more of the libraries, the school boards, the park districts, the municipal races. That's the election in April. So that's pretty much what's going on now. Any questions regarding the reports?
Any questions for the clerk's office report? Or comments? Okay. Oh, Madam Chair.
Could you share with the committee what the cost is for running this primary?
I don't have that offhand. We can get that for you if you want
That'd be
to.
great.
But basically, we have 6 polling locations open. There's, I believe, 13 precincts. So the judges for that, the polling locations, staff time, opening the polling places, all those things. It's not. We sometimes get the question of, does a primary cost more than a general, or how does that break down? If it were countywide, it would be pretty similar. But it's 13 precincts out of 292. So it's not going to be an exact pro rata of that, because we still have to spend some costs no matter what. We still have to publish things because there are mandates that the state makes us do. We still have to have this, we have to have our office open all those hours for early voting, whether people show up or not, et cetera. So it's not a quick.
It has to be done. I'm just
Yes.
curious of what the cost is.
We can get you an answer probably as soon as we finish everything. if you'd like.
And I think we could send it to the whole committee, just so would that be
Yeah,
appropriate?
that'd be good to know.
Thank you.
Mr. Chair, Sturgis.
Sturgis, go ahead.
If I remember correctly, I don't remember if it was at the county board or at the executive committee, there was a proclamation that was directed toward the clerk's office about receiving a large grant. And there was some conversation regarding, there was no conversation about the hard work that the clerk's office did, but there was some conversation asking for some details about who the grant was coming from. Is that something that would be discussed today, or how was that being handled?
Actually, I'm going to bring that up in just a moment. So if anything.
Happy to stand down.
Clerk's report. Yeah.
Thanks.
Any other comments or questions on the clerk's report? Okay. To that point, Mr. Sturgis, at the last county board, there was a question raised, I believe, by Mr. Young. The organization that was giving this $2 million grant, he asked the question, what do we know about them? And that's a valid question. My answer was, I don't know anything about them. I remember there was a report given previously by Mr. Pollock that they were receiving the grant. So since then, I've learned more about the group, and also I met with Mr. Cunningham and Mr. Pollock and Mr. Duggan to look at what the grant was, what are the documents behind that, what are the requirements, are there any strings attached, so to speak. And I apologize, I did not send the documents. I meant to, it was on my to-do list for yesterday to send these documents to you. I just got them. But our power went out yesterday because of all the down trees and branches, and I was existing on about 20% battery and had enough just for my alarm clock this morning. So I didn't send those documents out. I will get those to you guys later. So you can see the grant agreement that we received, and it's for the U.S. Alliance for Election Excellence, as well as a membership agreement that we have. As a member, we're entitled to go for that grant that they offer. Based on what I can see, there's nothing of any concern that would put the county at risk in any way. And when you get those documents, I encourage you to look at them and verify that for yourself. I did find some news articles that made claims that perhaps this group was in some way a part of efforts to influence elections in previous years. And I can't speak to the truth of those claims. I'm not an investigative reporter at this time, nor do I have the time to go into it. But I am looking at, and me and Mr. Young have been in communication and sharing information. So, there's still some more reading to do there. Again, as far as what impact this group may have on Kane County, all I see is positive possibilities and opportunities. The requirements of the grant are very open. It's for election infrastructure and things of that nature. There are no requirements outside of that Kane County adopt any practices recommended by any group or any kinds of thing like that may be produced from this organization. So again, I apologize, you don't have the documents, but I'm going to send that out to everyone on the county board for you to view for yourself. And if you do have any questions or concerns, after receiving those documents, just come to me and we'll work through it. If we need to talk about it again here, we will, but otherwise, so far I have been satisfied with the information I received. Mr. Young, I see you have your hand up.
Yes, I'd like to make a motion to put this on the agenda for next month so it can be discussed in further detail.
We'll consider that. I don't mind putting it on the agenda if there is something substantial for us to discuss. So I would rather everyone first see the documents and then we can decide if we need an actual discussion item, because otherwise this is within our purview to discuss as we are right now.
I'd like to make a comment about some information I found out about the U.S. Alliance for Election Excellence, and I shared this with you, but I'll just kind of review this with the group. It's a coalition of other nonprofits, and it was formed in April 2022. One of those nonprofits is called the Center for Tech and Civil Life, CTCL. And it has been documented that the CTCL in 2020 received $400 million from Mark Zuckerberg, and people refer to that as Zuckerbucks. And there is the infamous drop boxes that were used in the 2020 election, and in Wisconsin, the Supreme Court, the Wisconsin Supreme Court found those to be illegal. So I wanted to bring that up to people, as well as Zuckerbucks, and the use of this private money has been banned in 24 states. So I think what we're looking at is we just need to be more careful as to what is going on here. And one thing that I wanted to mention to you is that if you look at the obligation of membership in the contract, it mentions that the centers agree to pay an annual membership and to make non-monetary but highly significant contributions. So one of the things that strikes me, and we can have a further conversation later, is the fact that it says make non-monetary but highly significant contributions. So I wanted to bring that to everyone's attention of what I had found in my investigations of this U.S. Alliance.
Thank you, Mr. Young. Yeah, and I will disseminate some of the articles that you forwarded as well, to give some perspective on the matter. Again, when I spoke with Mr. Cunningham, this is a grant that was discovered at a conference of other county clerks and other officials of that nature, election officials. So, this wasn't they didn't scout us out or anything like that. It was an opportunity that Mr. Cunningham found, and he's very good at finding these opportunities, going after them and getting them. So my hat's off to Mr. Cunningham for that work that he does every year for us. But yes, we'll disseminate the information, and I'll follow up with everyone on the committee. If we feel that we need to have a more thorough discussion on this, we will. But I will ask you first to look at the source documents and determine if you feel that there is any reason for concern with the grant that we have received. Mr. Williams?
Yeah, I would echo those sentiments, Mr. Sanchez, and would like to thank the clerk's office for the hard work that they've done in procuring the grant. It was a bit unfortunate that the conversation about what's behind the grant came up when we're passing a proclamation. But I think it was, to Mr. Young's point, it was good that that's vetted and we understand, because the hallmark of a strong democracy are open and free elections. And obviously there's been a lot of discussion in the media over the last couple of years and national politics about election integrity. So I appreciate Mr. Young's efforts to flush those out. I look forward to reading those documents. And if we need to have another conversation, I look forward to do so. But I wanted to make sure that I was clear that, we appreciate the work that your office has done.
Yeah, and there's that phrase, trust but verify, which I like that phrase, and it's good. So nothing wrong with that. Madam Chair.
I have one question, perhaps either Mr. Young, yourself, or Mr. Pollock can answer. If this is a consortium of other not-for-profits. What kind of not-for-profit are we talking about? Is it charitable? Is it a PAC?
I don't believe they're not-for-profits, actually. I think they're private organizations.
Well, what is their business registration?
I don't know that, so we'll have to give you that as follow-up information.
I think that's very important, because if they're accepting contributions and they're distributing them, to what purpose? I mean, how would they collect the money? So I would assume that there having to be some kind of big not-for-profit or PAC. It has to be some organization of that, and I'm just interested in that business structure.
And so we'll put that together then as well. Mhm.
I have some more documents that I can share with you, Madam Chair.
That'd be very helpful. Thank you. Why did, again, perhaps, Mr. Young, you want to send that to either Jane or to Jarrett, and he can put it all together so that everybody can have an opportunity to see all of that.
Yeah, absolutely. I didn't want to
Mr.
just send out the
Chairman?
documents yeah, anyway, Ms. Bates.
Could you make sure that those documents go to everyone on the board? Since
Yes,
we will
yeah.
eventually be bubbling this up to us.
It was brought up at county
Thank you.
board, and so it'd be most appropriate that all county board members, but it's an interesting and good question, so everyone
you.
get the information. Okay, any other questions or comments on that topic? I think we covered it pretty well. That being said, we don't have anything else for other business, and thank you, Mr. Pollack, for being here, Ms. Duggan. No need for executive session that I'm aware of, unless Steve Ford has another opinion on that. All right. Someone please ask for unanimous consent to place the
moved.
reports on file.
Williams.
Mr. Williams asked, any objection? Hearing none. I need a motion and a second to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn, Williams.
Williams moves. Lewis seconds.
Seconds.
I knew she was going to say that.